All right, everybody, welcome. I do apologize. We missed a couple of podcasts here and there, and again, we're working on. I'm doing this whole podcast vlog, trying to do them both, and doing the video and doing the audio. And you need different formats for radio stations and podcasts. And I did them all, and they just all magically disappeared on what we were trying to do. But again, we're trying a new software today, and it's going to post everything where it needs to go and make it a little bit easier, hopefully. Because I'm sorry, you do a show, and you know I'm passionate about what I talk about, and you do a show, and it's gone. It's hard to replicate it. It's hard to go back and do it again. It's not like I'm doing stand up here where the routines are kind of the same. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about. We're going to start talking about inflation here because the reality is that the Biden administration is not taking the blame for anything, and they send the litany of their minions out there saying it's not our fault. We've done nothing wrong. We've done nothing wrong. We've done nothing wrong. They had the head of their Council of Economic Advisors today was actually on CNBC, and again, not our fault. Energy prices are not our fault. Nothing is our fault. Nothing. Yeah, President actually got into a bit of a tiff with a reporter asking about recessions this past weekend. I'm going to go over some basic things when it comes to inflation. Let's be honest. COVID lockdowns were part of it. COVID lockdowns lasted way too long. It's a policy error. We also talked about quantitative easing, which the Federal Reserve engaged in. Way too excessive, way too long. Another policy error. And of course, one of the big ones out there, which we repeat again, is just way too much damn free money out there. All sorts of free money. And I've mentioned this before because, again, I'm honest. I'm an equal opportunity basher here on the program. Trump's first round, I get it. I understand it. I didn't like the whole, extended unemployment from now to eternity, but that really got kicked into the second Trump package. And then, which was just not necessary. The second Trump package was not necessary. The Biden 1.9 trillion, I'll raise you like they're playing poker or something like that, was just patently absurd. Patently absurd. And of course, it's put us on this path. And I talked about this, last week. We talked about money and how it's being used and how money flows work. And when you have, people sitting around, they're locked down, they can't go out, they're not spending money on travel, not doing the things that they normally do. They start spending their money on stuff. And that's what happened. People started to spend a lot of money on stuff. And that helped as part of the problem as well. It was a great piece, actually, today's Mike Shedlock over at Mishtalk. He actually also mentioned as well, this is something that's, we talked about at the beginning of the conflict, our meddling in the Ukraine going back to 2014, which led to this situation that we're engaged in right now. Of course, Europe and their decision to go all in on Russia and Russian energy, and Angela Merkel shutting down her nuclear power facilities, not exactly a good idea. All sorts of the inability to deal with the supply chain issues. We go on and on and on. There's a lot of things out there. That have led to it. And many of them policy errors. We are, as I've said it many times, we're our own worst enemy. Anyway, that's okay. If you're listening to CNN, they had an economic reporter from the Financial Times, this Raina Forohar, says that all of the turmoil that we're going through is great. It's going to lead us to a better place. And again, I told you, people, a lot of this, actually much of it when it comes to energy, it's all by design. And we'll get into energy a little bit later on as well. Small business story. Small businesses falling behind on hiring as inflation takes its toll. Again, tough for a lot of small businesses. It's tough to compete with larger businesses with the benefits that they provide and a myriad of other things. And this has always been the case, but the labor market is very, very tight. Very tight still. And again, when we talk about inflation and then we talk about recessions and whether or not the NBER is going to actually call a recession with the labor market the way it is, I don't know. I mean, you had Larry Summers said we need to have unemployment above 5% for the next several years to get inflation in check. I never understood that. I never understood. Do you try to explain to me, this economists do this all the time. They explain to me how people being unemployed is somehow a good thing. Somehow a good thing. It's great for the economy. Again, this is how they used to judge, prior to, everybody all in on what the Fed and the Federal Reserve constantly telegraphing and making statements on a regular basis. Everybody be paying keen attention to jobs numbers. Because if the jobs numbers became too strong, it would affect the market to the downside because they're afraid, the Fed's going to raise rates, which they may do. But you explain to me that the ability for people to find a job, to get a job, to be gainfully employed, how that's somehow bad. It's not. I've never believed in any of that. $1 trillion, I forgot about this, a $1 trillion stimulus package. Which not stimulus, infrastructure, right? Infrastructure package. They're having a difficult time putting that into place too because they don't have enough construction workers. Get your arms around this, people. We live in a country where you could fall out of bed and you can get yourself a job. So that they're saying it's stymieing all these infrastructure projects that need to go on. Talking about it this past weekend. I mean, complaining. Maybe I'm becoming an old man, complaining with some of my other old man friends about the roads in New York and New Jersey, because every weekend I'm on the road. Every weekend I'm on the road and I am playing a video game in my car, dodging potholes. And we all see the same thing. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. If you're governor of the state of New York, how do you allow this to happen? How can you not make this a priority? People blowing out tires left, right, all over the place. Hey, I don't know. Maybe they can't get the crews to do it. Whatever. I'm not so sure about that. Story saying Americans are starting to pull back on travel and restaurants. They're also holding off on booking flights, getting haircuts, building backyard pools. One of the reasons why they're holding off on building backyard pools. You have any see how expensive it is? Same pool, because I put one in my backyard last year, moved into a house. Same one this year, $20,000 more. $20,000 more. People are getting sticker shock. And what is one of the things that deals with inflation better than anything else is high prices. High prices cure inflation. People are going to stop buying the pools. Stop buying the pools. Supplies will catch up. Prices will come back down. It's just how it works. But starting to pull back on travel and restaurants, I'm going to be honest. This is from my perspective. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. And quite frankly, I kind of wish they would. And I'm a road warrior. I've been a road warrior in the summers for years and years and years and years and years. And it's all because of my kids. My kids have tournaments. So this past weekend, in New Haven, tournament at Yale. And I'm staying at a, Hilton Comfort. Not a high level hotel by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't bad. But it wasn't, the Westin by any stretch. But the bloody thing almost cost me $400 a night. Almost $400 a night to stay at this place, and it was full. It's full. I go to these tournaments because I can't stand traffic. Well, who can? I usually leave 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday when the tournament starts. So I drive to Maryland, I can drive to Delaware, I can drive to Jersey, I can drive to Connecticut in this case, and get to these spots in a few hours at the most when there's no traffic. Way back home, a drive that took me around 2 hours. Took me around 2 hours to get to New Haven, Connecticut here from Long Island, leaving at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday. 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours. The highways were parking lots. Parking lots. So people are going somewhere. That's for sure. Anyway, story talking about how stocks historically don't bottom out until the Fed eases. And be real careful with a lot of these stories when it talks about the Fed and the Fed easing, what the Fed is going to do next. And again, don't be so sure as well. I know the Fed signaled 75 basis points and then possibly another 75 basis points. They may move from that. They may move from that. And again, it's all about forward guidance and getting habits to change to some degree. If they see any sign at all of a break in inflation, they're going to start taking the pedal away. Because again, I've gone back to this from the beginning. Again, another conversation I had this past weekend, people saying, well, why? If the Fed going to raise rates, they're going to get them all the way up to 10% to deal with inflation? No. Our country would be bankrupt. We couldn't afford to pay interest on our national debt. Going back to 2010, you remember the whole, Mediterranean. It was the financial issues, debt crisis for Southern European nations, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, Spain. And the rates went up a little bit and whammo, things got out of control fast. Again, we've got a big chunk of debt out there. A lot of it is in short-term instruments that we have to pay off, have to flip again and again and again, paying one credit card off with another credit card. Well, all of a sudden, those interest rates skyrocket. How in the world are we going to pay those interest costs? How? Where's the money going to come from? Look at the last 5 U.S. recessions. This is a piece from DataTrek research and pulling up some of the numbers. I wrote a piece and I talked about it this past weekend on my radio show, In Search of Recession. And when I talk about recessions, I kind of laugh because that's all they're talking. It's everything and anything on the business networks. Are we going to be in a recession? Are we going into a recession? Are we in a recession? And I keep saying to myself, who the hell cares? At this point in time, who the hell cares? Does it matter? Does it matter if all of a sudden you woke up one morning and it said the NBER is saying that we're in a recession right now? Is it going to change your day? Are you going to change your coffee brand? And the more it makes no sense. They're going to happen. But what people don't understand is that sooner the better. Sooner the better. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I am hoping that we have negative economic growth coming in the second quarter. If that's the case, one would make the argument that we're in a recession. Once you're in that point in time, well, gee whiz, markets do pretty well. Here's some of the numbers. Every recession and market crisis since 1973. Same story for U.S. equities. 1973, 1974, the S&P was down 37%. In 1975 to 1976, the index was up 70%. 81, S&P lost 5% despite the Fed-induced recession. 82 to 83, index gains 48%. 1990, S&P loses 3% despite Gulf War I oil shock. 91 to 92, index gains 40%. 2002, down 37%. 2003, 2004, index up 42%. 2008, S&P loses 37%. 2009, 2010, index gains 45%. And again, I know numbers don't translate well on podcasts, radio, and vlogs, wherever you're watching or listening in on the program. But it's important to know this. It's important to know this. And I kind of wanted to put together almost like let's play pretend. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it could. But it could. And investors out there, you're going to need to prepare yourself for the possibility that the market can go much lower. And some of the biggest bears out there pointing around 3,000. Let's say market goes down. Let's say the S&P hits 3,000. Okay. What you're looking at is the average bull market after a pullback like that is about 64 months long with 198% return. So what that means by 2028, you'd have an S&P 500 at 6,000. That's a nice rate of return for even if you bought in at the top, the most recent top. It's still a nice level of return. And again, especially if you're reinvesting on a regular basis and dollar cost averaging, taking advantage of some of these value plays that you need to right now. I mean, it's what makes you successful over time. And to this day, it's the greatest buying opportunity I ever saw was a Great Recession. The type of money that our clients made in that period of time to today is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. Go back and take a look at the charts. Go back and see where the S&P hit. I mean, 600. I mean, it's been unbelievable. And in the grand scheme of things, it can happen pretty quickly. Okay, and you don't want to miss it. The Treasury Secretary of the United States said the only way to fix the energy crisis is to move to renewables, which is just false. It's just patently not. It's not true. The only way to fix the only way. That's just it. There's one way, one path. One way is through renewables. You want to explain that to me? We don't have enough batteries. The batteries aren't good enough to handle it. We don't have enough windmills. We don't have enough materials to do all this stuff. Your one way is going to take a hell of a lot longer than the right way, which is a multi-faceted, multi-pronged approach to this, where we are going out there and drilling. Drill, baby, drill works. It works every single time it's tried. You increase supply, will be fine. It's kind of interesting. The Europeans love all their green stuff, right? They love. We're super green over here in Europe. We have the Paris Climate Accords, all that good stuff. Guess what? Holland, Germany, Austria, and Italy are now going back and they're opening up their coal-fired plants and increasing electric production at these coal-fired plants. Why? Well, they don't want the lights to go off. They don't want the lights to go off. What are we getting from the administration at this point in time is, we may give you a gasoline tax holiday. Really? Thanks, but no thanks. Thanks. I'm just not really interested. It was a great piece by this fellow by the name of Bjorn Lomborg, and he's at the Hoover Institute, and he's talking about the wealthy countries, the rich world's climate hypocrisy, and how we keep dictating and telling all of these developing nations that they need to put up windmills and solar panels, and that's the way it goes. Make no bones about it. We're pushing this is because you've got members of Congress that are invested in these companies or tied to people who are owners and invested in these companies. I mentioned this. I said one of the greatest investments you could have made leading up to the election of Barack Obama was to donate to his campaign. All you needed to do is to have some sort of green company, whatever it may be, call yourself a green company, donate to his campaign, and you were getting money from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. How'd that work out? How many of those companies that the taxpayers subsidized or funded from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, how many of them are still around? Again, he's a wizard of smart. This is Barack Obama and all his buddies there taking your money and deciding how to invest it. And they failed miserably. But anyway, this is a great story here I wanted to share that he talks about in this article. And I wasn't really familiar. I heard about this, but wasn't really look into it to that great of a degree. To talk about renewables and how, again, you get all the big countries, whatnot, want these smaller nations, developing nations to head in that directions. And there's this village. It's called Darnai. It's an Indian village. Back in 2014, Greenpeace tried to turn it into the country's first solar-powered community. Now, you bet your bottom dollar that the media covered this, and oh my God, the fanfare, and this is great. This is wonderful. Yep, they said Greenpeace received glowing global media attention when it declared that Darnai would refuse to give up into the trap of the fossil fuel industry. But the day the village's solar electricity was turned on, the batteries were drained within hours. One boy remembers being unable to do his homework early in the morning because there wasn't enough power for his family's one lamp. Villagers were told not to use refrigerators or televisions because they would exhaust the system. They couldn't use cook stoves and had to continue burning wood and dung. Dung creates air pollution. Pretty dangerous. They say it's akin to smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. In August 2014, Greenpeace invited one of the Indian state's top politicians, who soon after became its chief minister, to admire their handiwork. He was met by a crowd of people waving signs and chanting they wanted real electricity to replace this fake electricity. When the town, was finally connected. They finally connected to the main power grid, which is coal powered. Villagers quickly dropped their solar connections. Why? Well, if you join the coal power grid, it costs 1/3 of what the solar energy did. And guess what? They could power up their televisions and their refrigerators. People, again, no problem. Alternative energy. Quite frankly, I think nuclear's alternative energy. We don't do enough of that. But it needs to make sense. We have to have a plan to get from point A to point B. And quite frankly, I wish that the powers that be say, okay, we want to head in this direction. This is going to be at least 3 decades. At least 3 decades. If it happens sooner, it happens sooner. But again, how many people out there can afford electric cars in this country where, the average electric car is more than a median family makes here in this country? It's crazy. It really is. Anyway, Elon Musk questioning whether TikTok is destroying civilization or social media as a whole. I remember I talked about this on the program. Again, I have social media accounts. I just don't engage in bull excrement. Sorry, just don't do it. We use it as a tool to kind of all right, you want to see our videos, you want to see our blog, this is where I'm showing up, this is what I'm doing. Much of social media, and I equated it years ago to the pink slime from Ghostbusters 2 that was flowing underneath New York City that made everybody angry and want to fight one another. In essence, that's what social media has done. Musk also, he was catching some flack from some of his workers and various different wizards of smart elitists all over social media, because of the fact that he got upset and got rid of some workers at SpaceX. Elon Musk says he's a free speech absolutist, but when people were criticizing him, he fired them. I'm going to make something perfectly clear to all of you millennials or Gen Zers out there. Workplace is not the public square. Probably not a good idea to take to the internet and social media and bash the company that you're working for or going off on the guy that signs your paycheck. Just saying. Probably not very wise. So there's a door. You don't like it? Go. Bye. Bye. And listen, you don't like where you're working. No one's holding a gun to your head and making you stay there. Pack up your shit and leave. Never really could get my arms around that. Rick Scott. Scott's got a lot of ideas out there, and I like a lot of them, quite frankly. He's got this plan he's putting together. I don't know if he's gearing up for a run at the White House. I'm not sure, but he's talking about trying to get more Americans back to work and changing and going back to some of the old SNAP requirements. I didn't even realize that they didn't go back. The work requirement that was involved with SNAP during the pandemic, they got rid of that, and they haven't reinstated it yet. They haven't reinstated it. I'm sorry. And be quite honest with you, if you want a job, you can get a job. If you want a job, you can get a job. I don't understand the counter argument for trying to push people. You're trying to push people in a direction it's good for society. I mean, government likes to do its heavy-handed BS all the time. This is not heavy-handed. This is saying, hey, you know what? You want to get this supplemental nutrition assistance program? You want the SNAP program? The fellow taxpayer to help foot your food bill? Okay, you make under a certain amount of money. I'm sorry. Can you go look for a job though too? Isn't that what you want to do? Isn't it the goal of any sort of social welfare program? Shouldn't it be to get those people off of welfare, off of handouts and giveaways? Could be me calling me crazy. That's how these programs should be judged. Not by how many people you enroll in them, but by how many people you get off them. This one, I'm sorry. I'm going to be honest with everybody here, and I'll probably get some nasty messages. Still, it's amazing the COVID crazies that are out there. And I mean, the numbers are almost 10 times as much recorded from last summer. I don't know if everybody last summer was just getting fatigue in regards to testing. And I'm trying to remember last summer, there wasn't so many of the rapid tests sitting around. I think a lot of people are, getting a cold and they just take a rapid test. Ooh, I have COVID. And they're staying home. Obviously the death totals are way down. Now, I'm not saying that COVID is not real, but I'm sorry. I've seen the numbers. Babies really aren't bothered by this. And now they just approved a vaccine for children under 5. I think it's up to 6 months old, 10 months old. I'm not giving my baby a COVID shot. Just saying. No way. No way am I going to do that. I'm curious to see down the line whether or not they make it a requirement to go to start kindergarten. I don't know. Transportation secretary. Oh, he had his flight canceled. Mayor Pete had his flight canceled from Washington to New York City. Now, again, I thought you guys were a green administration. Why didn't you take the train, Mayor Pete? And it's call it what it is. By the time you get to the airport, you got to get there, and you got to get through security. You got to do all that good stuff. By the time you do that, get on the plane. It's train in some of the Northeast quarter. It's close when you're dealing with trains, planes, and automobiles when it comes to travel. But anyway, his flight got canceled and he's upset. He's howling mad. He said the United States may act against these airlines because of all of these cancellations. There's a pilot shortage. Many of them retired. Many of them, many people out there left, because they didn't feel like getting the COVID vaccination, which you mandated. There's a lot of reasons for this. It's a tight labor market. I highly highly doubt that these airlines want to cancel flights, especially flights that are full. These flights are full. You think that they want to cancel them? No. Again, the U.S. may act. What are you going to do, Mayor Pete? Huh? In your infinite wisdom. In your infinite wisdom of logistics, what the hell are you going to do, Mayor Pete? Do nothing. Nothing. Well, maybe we'll find them some more. Okay, great. Anyway, great. I'm going to save that one for tomorrow. A Kessler piece is going to take me a while. It was really, really good. This one, quickly on this, I don't want to end on a dour note, but you got 5 major cities right now that are on pace to pass the 2021 homicide totals halfway through 2022. Again, we all called it. We told you what was going to happen. Defund the police, all of these new age crazy policing ideas and this bail reform nonsense. It's a mess. It really is a mess out there. And you see some of these shootings, some of these things that take place. It breaks your heart on a regular basis, but it's also making us a bit numb too. It really is. It's making us numb. You're getting hit with it all too often. We all are. I'm sorry. We have to change direction. All right. You screwed up. Yeah. You had your way. You had your way with bail reform and all of these different things. It didn't work. It didn't work. You're wrong. You're wrong. Move on. Move on. Go back to the way things were. People want to feel safe in their communities. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Watchdog on wallstreet.com. Watchdog on wallstreet.com.